Two, one. Okay, I'm live. I am live. Okay, cool. It's got a little thing on the side. It'll tell me when people start watching. Right now we're at 0. That's okay. It's just you and me right now. I know. I've got to click show and stream to add you on the screen. I'm going to add you on there in a minute. Okay, I'm getting Facebook notifications saying that I'm live, so it must be working. Okay, we got 2 people on there. Okay. Hey, everybody, we're going to get started here in just a few minutes. Just as a reminder, today I'm doing a Facebook Live to talk about VA loans. So anybody that is either active service or military veteran, VA loans are a good program that gives you the opportunity to buy a home, and it has some benefits that traditional mortgages do not offer. So we're going to answer questions today about VA financing, all the information you need to know, whether you're a first-time VA buyer or if you've used the program before and just need a refresher. I have a special guest joining me today who is an expert in the subject. So she will be answering questions about VA financing. I'm going to give us just a few more minutes. We're about 2 minutes till 12. We've got 10 folks on right now. If you guys have questions, if you will type your questions into the comment box, that way as Christina, my guest, and I are moving along, we will answer anybody's specific questions they have as you type them in. So feel free to type questions, or if you don't have questions and you just want to hang around and listen to what we have to say, I've got a set of questions pertaining to VA financing that I'll be asking my guest, and she will be answering them. So, and maybe you'll think of some questions as we're going along. So feel free to chime in at any point if you have questions, or if you just want to type in the comment box and say hi and let us see who you are. Be happy to say hello. Going to give it about 1 more minute and then we will officially get started. Hope everybody has thawed out from the snowpocalypse last week. It was fun. It was fun, wasn't it? We love snow, just not that much. I just realized I forgot to put my lipstick on. I hardly ever wear lipstick, but I figure while I'm on camera, I might as well make them look nice. There we go. Okay. 11:59. Okay, we got some folks on. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So without further delay, this is Trish Minshew with Coldwell Banker Apex. I am a local realtor from good old Waco, Texas, and today we're having a Facebook Live to talk about VA loans. So anybody who is a military veteran or active duty, or if you have a loved one that is, and you're thinking about purchasing a home, this is a great program. So you will want to stay tuned in and get some information about VA loans and how they can benefit you or your loved one who is a veteran. So joining me today, I'm going to bring her on the screen, is the lovely Christina Dominguez. Here she is. Christina, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Christina Dominguez. I am a local mortgage lender here in Waco, Texas. And I have been in the mortgage business for 20 years. I'm not that old, but anyway, so I'm a local mortgage lender here in Waco, and I live here locally, and I have 2 kids, and that's about it. What else should I say?
That's it.
Yeah, there's probably more.
You're a mom and a mortgage lender. That's all you do.
I am.
Okay, I'm playing around with all my little titles at the bottom. For y'all watching, this is my first time using, there's a program called Be Live that lets me do Facebook Lives and do some extra techie stuff that I wasn't normally able to do, just doing it straight through Facebook. So I'm playing around with it today. Okay, well, we are going to jump right in. And Christina, I'm going to ask you my first question. What is a VA loan and who is eligible?
So a VA loan is where you can use your eligibility because you are a veteran or active duty service. And it is eligible to somebody who has served 90 consecutive days during wartime, 181 days during peacetime, or 6 years of service on the National Guard or Reserves.
Okay.
So you don't have to be in the military for many, many years. They're pretty specific, and 90 days wartime and 181 days during peacetime. That's not a very long time at all.
So what is that, like 6 months? Not even a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So anyone that has served for that minimum amount of time
Right.
is eligible for a VA loan.
Exactly.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so then that leads to my next question. So what are the benefits of using a VA loan? So if somebody is a veteran or active duty and they meet these minimum requirements, what would be the benefit of them doing a VA loan versus a conventional loan or like an FHA loan? What makes this program unique?
So there are no down payment requirements. Some people do just want to put down payments anyway, and that's fine. But there are no down payment requirements. There's also no monthly mortgage insurance, which you will have on conventional unless you put 20% down. And FHA always has it. So that can save you anywhere from $100 to a couple $100 a month just on your payment alone. And normally the interest rates are quite a bit lower than the others.
Can you tell us what the average interest rate is right now for VA loans?
So VA loans are still running around the high 2s, low 3s. Interest rates, of course, have a lot to do with what's your credit score, what's your debt to income ratio. So there's a lot that plays into it. But I would say an average is right around the 3% right now.
Okay, that brings another question to mind. So what is the minimum credit score requirement for a VA loan, and is it different than other loan programs?
Generally, a VA is going to want your credit score to be a 620.
Okay. And if I recall, that's most mortgage lenders, that's the minimum with an FHA loan as well.
Right.
So a veteran is not going to be required to have a higher credit score than a non-veteran when they're getting qualified for a mortgage.
Correct.
Okay, that's good. What are there any other benefits? So most people know about the zero down payment, the lower interest rate. I wasn't aware that there was no mortgage insurance, so that definitely makes their monthly payments lower than somebody who's not doing the VA loan. Are there any other benefits, just as far as maybe like lower closing costs, or maybe there's some costs that they don't have to pay that a non-veteran would have to pay during the loan?
So there are certain programs that you can do where the closing cost would differ. But just on a straight plain VA, no, not necessarily. But there's always things that you can tack on to that. Yeah.
Okay.
And so some of those things would be, there are some programs where they do have lower closing costs, and there are some programs where they even give you an even additional break on your interest rate. And those are very specific, but they're definitely something we can look into for people.
Okay. And I will just say from my experience as a realtor, with any veteran buyers that I've worked with, we always negotiate to get the seller to pay their closing costs so that they're coming to the closing table with little to no money out of pocket. Just as an added benefit to those veterans, no down payment. And then obviously they are going to have closing costs like any other home buyer would, but I work to get that paid by the seller side so that they're not having to fork over, a significant amount of cash at closing.
Right. Yes. And that's always a good thing, because then you can come with, essentially nothing.
Right. Okay. Next question. And I'm looking, I don't see any questions yet from our viewers, so I will keep going. What documents does a buyer need to provide to you, the lender, if they want to apply for VA financing?
So there's always going to be the general documents, no matter what type of loan you're doing. And that's going to be, pay stubs, bank statements, W-2s. It depends on what your income is. If you're self-employed, you'll need tax returns, or if you're a business owner, you'll need tax returns. But 1099 W-2, just your pay information, however you get paid. Then you'll need your bank statements, last 2 months of your bank statements. And then you're going to, of course, need, with a VA loan, you're going to want to get a copy of your DD-214. DD-214 is going to say, your discharge information, when you were discharged, when you were active duty. If that's something you don't have, you can get it. There is ways to get it, and I can help you with those resources on how you would go about getting that, because we would need that DD 214 to pull your certificate of eligibility. There are some instances where you don't even need the DD 214, but you're going to always need the certificate of eligibility. But again, that is something that I can pull for you.
Okay, so really the only thing additionally that a veteran or active duty buyer would have to provide, in addition to what any home buyer would normally provide, would be this DD 214 and the certificate of eligibility.
Right.
Okay. And so how would they go about getting those if they never requested one, if they don't know where to get it from?
It's on their VA website. It's normally going to be in the same spot where you, if you get any sort of retirement or disability pay.
Okay.
It's a specific website that if you don't have a login, I can show you how to get one. And if you're not a computer savvy person, it's something you can also call. I've got the phone number you can call and get them to hook up. Now, since COVID's happened, sometimes that can be a little tricky. If we do end up needing your original DD 214, that's something that, you know, if you think you're going to want to purchase VA loan in the next 6 months to a year or whatever, I would go ahead and work on trying to get a copy of that and
start that process now.
Yeah,
okay.
That's something I can help you do, just because it seems that, I think like a month or two ago, I ran into it where, you know, they were still shut down or they were still on a skeleton crew. And so the wait times was a little bit longer.
Okay. So if somebody's wanting to purchase a home this year using a VA loan, if they don't already have their DD 214, go ahead and start that process now to request it, because like you said, with COVID, we're seeing delays with lots of things. So.
And another thing is I want to point out is do not pay for that. That is a free thing. There are plenty of places that will try and say, you know, I'll get it for you on a rush. Send me $100. I had an elderly lady recently that fell into that trap, and she ended up getting the free one way before she got the $100 one. So.
Really? Wow. Yeah. Okay. So it's not going to cost them anything to obtain that documentation. Right. Okay. I'm going to ask you a question that I didn't have in my agenda. I know it's something you'll know the answer to, because I'm pretty sure I've asked you this before in working with home buyers. So let's say you have a couple that wants to go in together and purchase a house, and let's say the gentleman is a veteran and then the woman is not, and they're not married. Can they still go in together and use the VA loan, or do they have to be married in order to do that?
So he would be able to use it, but she would not. So there'd be two different borrowers, and they would only, I lost my words. They would only secure half of it. VA would only back half of the loan. So it would essentially be, she would have to put her down payment on her side of it, because he would only be able to use the eligibility for his part of the loan.
Okay.
If they're married, it's not an issue. But if they're unmarried, that's where you run into that. Now, if, you know, you two are not married and you want to buy a VA with zero down and then come back and add somebody later on, you can do that too. And then you don't have to worry about only being able to use the VA on partial loan. Okay.
So in that situation, if it was an unmarried couple, in order to do the zero down, it could only be in the veteran's name and not the other person, unless they're married. Right. Okay. I know I get that question from time to time, so I just wanted to bring that up in case that was something that anybody else might be wondering about. If someone has a parent that is a veteran, can the child of a veteran use the VA loan benefit? No. Okay.
No, it's not like your retirement or your Social Security or anything like that. It's strictly for the veteran or a surviving spouse of a veteran.
Okay. So if the veteran's passed away, their surviving spouse would be able to use that. Okay. Yeah. Good to know.
They also can obtain a copy of that DD 214 for their deceased spouse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
As well.
Okay. All right. Still don't have any questions. Any of you guys watching right now, if y'all have any questions that pop up, and you know what, if they don't even have to pertain specifically to VA loans, if you have any questions in general about home buying and financing, while you've got us on the live right now, feel free to type your questions in, and we'd be happy to answer anything related to buying and financing. Doesn't have to be VA specific, although that is the topic that we are addressing today. Next question I have for you, Christina: can a buyer use a VA loan more than once? Is it just a one-time benefit, or what if, they buy a house using a VA loan, some years down the road, they want to sell that house and buy another house? Can they use that again?
Yes, you
Okay.
can. And there are even certain circumstances where if you've had a previous foreclosure, that you may be able to come back in. And now that's not a black and white answer. It kind of has to go through an equation. Depends on how much the house was, how much it was left on it when you foreclosed on it and stuff like that. But yes, you can buy a house today, VA, and in 5 years, sell it and buy another one, VA.
Okay. But there are limitations on like the value of the home, depending on
Yes.
what your eligibility amount is.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And
Now,
that's specific per person.
It is. Okay. So not everybody that qualifies for a VA loan is not going to have the same eligibility amount.
So here's the deal. So in Waco, in McLennan County, in Central Texas areas, you will very rarely run into the fact that you don't have enough.
Okay.
So if you're buying like $1 million home, that's the only time you're going to run into the, oops, I don't have enough coverage or whatever. But you will definitely have enough to have one current VA loan.
Okay. Okay.
Did you see the question on here? It said, do you have to have your COE? I'm sorry. If you have your COE, do you have to have a DD-214? The short answer is no, but there are every once in a while where it comes across that they do need it. Most of the time, it's only going to happen on somebody that's quite a bit older, like upper 70s at least, just because of the age of the records.
Okay. So you're saying more often than not, if they've got the certificate of eligibility, then the DD-214 would not be needed.
Would not be needed, yes. So more often than not. But I always try to mention it because there are instances where it does come across. Like I have a lady right now, she is a surviving spouse. But for whatever reason, when we went in to order her certificate of eligibility, they did request a copy of his DD-214. It very might be that his discharge was not honorable. It could be anything. I'm not positive, and I won't know till I get it back. But yes, there are sometimes reasons and why you will need it.
Okay. And then Erica also asks, what are the loan limits for VA loans in and around Waco? I know you were touching on that a little bit.
Yes, and so they changed this year. Let me see, make sure. Yeah. $548,250. $548,250 is the loan limits. Now that does not mean you can't buy a $600,000 house. That just means that as the VA will back X amount. So there very well might be a small down payment if you buy a $600,000 house.
Okay, so the VA will finance up to that loan limit, and if someone is using a VA loan and they're buying a house that's more than that limit, they have to cover the difference in cash, basically?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, let's say they buy, what did you say the limit was? 580 something?
548,250. I know it's a very odd number.
Okay, so I'm going to round it and say 550. So, what happens if a veteran buys a $550,000 house and then 5 years from now they sell that house and they want to buy another house? So, does that mean they've used that up and they cannot purchase any more homes using VA loans?
No.
Okay.
If they've sold that house, then they can, it essentially resets.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes.
It resets that amount. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Right. The only time you're going to run into how much do I already have tied up into a house is if you did have a foreclosure situation.
Okay. Okay. But otherwise, whatever the loan limit is at the time.
Yes.
They can, but you can only have one VA loan at a time. You can't own multiple properties with VA loans.
That's kind of a,
Or is that getting into
yeah.
not an easy answer on that one?
You can, but there are certain restrictions.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll move on because I know that would be a very unique situation and
It
most.
does, yeah, it does happen. But there's certain criteria where it would be okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. I'm going to get into one where I'm going to ask you, but I know the answer to this as well. So, what are some property condition requirements for VA loans? And I know some people may not realize this. I've had this come up with veterans that are using a VA loan, and let's say they want to buy, they find something on the market. I'm going to use an example that came up recently. A gentleman, he wanted to look at a house that was out in Golson, and it was a manufactured home. And I want to say the home was, I don't know, maybe 5 years old. It was on a little bit of land. But that particular property did not qualify for VA financing. So tell me a little bit about why there are some properties that cannot, that someone using a VA loan, they cannot purchase.
Right. So a lot of people get really, really scared when they say, oh, a VA loan, it's hard to get it to go through. And it's really not as bad as it seems. So first of all, when I say these, you're gonna be like, well, that's super vague. It is. And so a lot of times it's going to be, it's the appraiser's discretion. And so the appraiser looks at a lot of things, and it's going to be the mechanical systems. They must be safe and have reasonable future utility. So,
and when we say mechanical systems, we're talking about
electrical,
plumbing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. If they go in and I've seen this before where the fuse, not fuse box, the box out, the electrical box was fuses. It was the old cylinder fuses.
Oh,
yeah, like
okay.
way before our time. And so yeah, that's not it. That's not going to work.
Okay.
And then the heating must be adequate. Meaning if you have a 1,500 square foot house, but your heater is only sufficient for 500 square feet, it's not
adequate.
Right. And your roofing must be adequate. See, they keep using these words adequate.
Adequate.
So
what does that mean?
it's kind of like a little bit or some, I don't, so, I would just say that, if there are missing shingles and you are listing your house, I would just go ahead and just get stuff like that replaced. Of course, there can't be any leaks or anything like that, but just make sure it's adequate.
Okay. Something that we see frequently in our area are foundation problems. Is there anything in the VA property requirements that talks about having an adequate foundation or anything regarding that?
Yes. And it's going to use another word, adequate. So what does adequate mean? So basically I would just say, if you walk into the house and you feel like you're leaning forward or backwards, it might be questioned.
Okay.
But, a lot of the foundation guys around here will give you a free estimate anyway. And so, and they should be able to tell you, hey, this may or may not be a problem. That's what, if you feel like that may come into play, then I would just do that. Another thing that has to do with foundation is if you have a pier and beam house, there has to be a crawl space. So if something happened and you had to get down there for plumbing or something, it has to be adequate as well, meaning somebody has to be able to
fit through the space. Right. I had one recently. I had a listing in North Waco and there was no crawl space. It was on pier and beam. And so the owner had to get a saw and literally cut a crawl space in the bottom of one of his closets because the inspector was there and he's like, there's no way for me to get under the house. There's no crawl space. So they had to create one.
Another thing that I've had come up is, if it's not.
Oh, you cut out just a second. You went silent.
My phone rang. Sorry.
That's okay.
You have to be able to get to it. So, I've seen it before where it's in the floor. It's just a square and they've got a handle and there's a lock. Well, when the appraiser goes, that needs to be unlocked. They need to be able to get down there and see it. And so that's another thing I had run into where the appraiser had to go back because it wasn't accessible.
Okay. I'm going to ask a question that I know the answer to, and I know you know the answer to too, but I get it frequently usually from first-time home buyers, and even sometimes from home sellers. When you're dealing with any kind of government-backed loan, whether it's VA or FHA, I hear the phrase a lot, is this house going to pass inspection? And I think a lot of times the buyer thinks that the home inspector is the one who makes the determination of whether or not
Right.
there's any of these conditions that are going to, be flagged for the loan. But is it the inspector or is it the actual appraiser that makes that determination?
Right. So there's a difference between an inspector and a home appraiser.
Mm-hmm.
The home inspector, number one, your lender never sees that. They don't
want to see it.
Right. And so that inspector is going to be a lot more fine-tooth comb. The appraiser is the guy that's going to make sure that everything's adequate. So, the appraiser is going to have an issue if there's, active termites or rotten wood or chipping paint or broken glass.
And all these things that you're mentioning are things that will be flagged by a VA appraiser.
Yes.
And those conditions would have to be repaired before the buyer could close on the purchase of the property.
Right. Yes. They would have to be remediated. I can't say the word. They have to be fixed. How about that?
They have to be fixed. Yes.
Yeah. So, but those are things that the appraiser is going to ask for. The appraiser is not going to open the refrigerator and make sure it's staying cold enough.
Okay.
He wants to know: is it sound? Is it safe?
Okay.
And so,
and I'm assuming these conditions are not put in place to make it more difficult for VA buyers to buy a home, but it's to maintain some standard of safety in the homes that they are buying.
Right. Essentially what it is, because the down payment is lower, because they want to make sure that they're putting these veterans into loans that are, a house that's going to
a good home
stand.
Yeah.
Most people get 30-year mortgages. And so you don't want to get into a home that the roof will be falling in the next 5 years.
Right. Okay. And you mentioned something about termites. Mm-hmm. Some people may or may not know this. So a pest inspection is actually a requirement with a VA loan, right? And that's unique to VA loans. There's not any other type of mortgage where you're required to have the pest inspection. So why is that required on VA loans and not others?
Well, personally,
does it just kind of go back to the property, the standards of safety?
Yes. It does. I personally think, I would want to know if termites are there no matter what kind of loan I got. But anyway, they just want to make sure there's not any conducive conditions or active infestation. When I say conducive conditions, and I'm sure you've come across this, where the pest inspector goes out there and says, there's a pile of firewood outside the back door, which is butted up next to the house. And so that makes it easy that if there is termites, then in that wood, then of course it's right next to the house. And so that
it's easy for them to access the house if there's a pile of wood there.
Yeah.
And it seems silly. And I've had that come up where the pest inspector will actually say there is a pile of wood by the house that needs to be removed. Mm-hmm. And it's just simply a matter of going and taking the wood and removing it.
Move it over a foot. Yeah. So another thing is if there is active termites, that doesn't mean you can't do the loan. That just means it needs to be treated.
They have to be treated.
Yeah. And they need to give you a warranty for that treatment. And so you'll have to show proof of that. And normally those are things why, this right here is an example why you need a realtor. You don't want to have to be the one to, worry about those things that, as you know, that you're the one that contacts the person and makes sure those things get done.
Right.
And they're normally at the seller's expense.
Now, are there, I'm glad you brought that up because I know there's something related to the pest inspection or the pest treatment that a VA buyer is not allowed to pay for. Is that termite treatment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if someone is using a VA loan, the pest inspection shows that there are termites, that seller has to bear the expense of the termite treatment.
Right.
Okay. We've got another question. It says, can you choose an appraiser the same way that you choose to hire an inspector?
No.
Okay. Who chooses the appraiser who comes to appraise the home?
So the way that an appraiser works is every lender has their approved list. Could be 5, 10 appraisers.
Okay.
And the reason that we do that, I'll just touch on this for a second, is, it used to be I could call Joe Smith and say, hey, Joe, I need this house to appraise for $250,000 and I don't need you to look at A, B, and C, please. And they would do that. And so then these buyers would get into these houses and the appraiser said it was worth $250,000 and said nothing about the fact that there's rotten wood out the back patio. And now little Johnny walked out the back door, fell through the patio, blah, blah, bigger and bigger and bigger. So now there are laws and regulations put in place to where all I know is these are my panel of appraisers and it went to one of them. So I don't get to pick it initially. The thing on VA, it will tell you who the appraiser is once it's assigned.
Okay.
But no, I don't get to say
you can't choose the buyer. The buyer can't choose the appraiser.
Nobody
it's just
can.
randomly assigned to this list of approved appraisers.
Right.
Okay.
That's why you want to have an inspection, in my opinion, because you can pick that guy. You can decide who that's going to be.
Well, and I will speak from experience here. You definitely want to have a home inspection. That's typically done the first week or so that you're under contract. And I had one not too long ago where both the buyer and the seller were veterans. So the seller kind of knew ahead of time, okay, we may have some things come up on the home during the inspection that we know we're going to have to fix so that it passes the VA appraisal, because the buyer was going VA as well. And sure enough, the inspector pointed out that there was some chipping paint in some places along the exterior of the house. So before the appraisal was even assigned, that seller said, okay, I'm going to get somebody out here to sand down this paint and repaint it so we don't have any chipping, peeling paint, because we know that appraiser is going to call that out. And if we wait until time for the appraiser to call that out, sometimes we run into situations where we're having to delay closing because the appraiser calls out something and then we've got to go back and have somebody repair it. And it can delay the closing of the loan. So, again, that brings back the importance of hiring a home inspector and then just having a realtor that is going to know what things to look for. So if you are a VA buyer, your realtor will be able to point out some things at the home that you're thinking about buying, saying, okay, well, just know that if you do get this home under contract, here's some things that I see that we may want to go ahead and ask the seller to repair so they don't come up in the appraisal and then it end up delaying things.
Right.
Okay, so that kind of brings me to the next question, which I know you and I both get this a lot, is so does it take longer to buy a house using a VA loan versus other types of mortgages?
No. The only reason, the only thing that's really delaying right now is just because of the volume. And now we just had the great Texas blizzard. The appraisers are a little bit behind. But it has nothing to do with the fact that it's VA necessarily.
Okay, that's interesting because even before getting into real estate, I remember hearing, oh, well, conventional mortgage you can close in 30 days, but with VA, you're looking at 45. So why is there this misconception that VA loans take longer?
I think that people have a common misconception of VA and FHA a lot of times about the property has to be, perfect and that things take longer. In general, somebody that does conventional financing sometimes they fall into, they put larger down payments. And so because of certain ways they do the loan, there's not as many requirements.
Okay.
And I have heard certain lenders say that it does take a little bit longer, but the only reason it would take a little longer with most is if there's a delay in appraisals.
Okay. And which we can see that really with any kind of loan.
Right.
But with VA specifically, if there's something that's flagged as far as a property condition that could cause a delay, like we talked about, if it's something, a repair that had to be done prior to closing.
Right. Yeah. That's about the only thing that if there was something that happened, for whatever reason, they came back and said you had to replace the roof. Well, that's not something you can call and have the guy out there the next day most times.
Right.
But if we're being honest, I mean, property things can, you don't ever know what's going to happen with the property.
Right. let's see, I just had a question pop into my head. Does every lender and bank that offer mortgages typically also offer VA loans?
Not necessarily, not necessarily.
Okay.
Most mortgage companies will do offer VA loans, but for the most part, just regular banks do not most of the time.
Okay. I'm going to ask a question just kind of pertaining to that right there. So what would be the difference between if I wanted to go to a bank to get a mortgage versus going to somebody like you who you work for a mortgage company?
Right.
What's the difference?
So I am a mortgage lender, which means that our loans are secondary market loans, which means that they're backed by Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, and so they are you can do the FHA VA conventional, which are FHA and VA are lower down payment loans.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to a bank, normally you're going to go by whatever that bank has put in for their guidelines. So maybe that bank
Okay.
says you have to have 20% down and your credit score has to be a 740 or whatever. Every bank's going to be different. But with the secondary market loan, those guidelines are set by Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae.
Okay. So I guess going to a mortgage company, it's going to be more standardized just as far as the loan
Yes.
requirements and the loan offerings, whereas it sounds like you were saying that each bank can kind of decide,
Yes.
from
Now,
one bank to the next what they're going to require.
exactly. Now there
Okay.
are mortgage companies that some of us do have overlays. And what I mean by overlays is, VA might say that your credit score can be a 620, but my mortgage company says you have to be a 640. Certain things like that. There can be those overlays per mortgage company, but generally we all have the same guidelines.
Okay. And an overlay is just an additional requirement that specific company
Yes,
has that's above whatever the minimum that Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae requires.
exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
One of the things, like when COVID happened, they everybody kind of freaked out because the market did all kinds of crazy things, and so they tightened up a lot of the guidelines. And at that time, many mortgage companies came back and said that, I heard some that weren't taking anything under 680. I heard 720
Mm.
as far as credit score. So that those would be considered overlays.
Okay. Yeah, I remember hearing the 680 for several months from most of the
Yeah.
companies. So, but luckily that's gone back to
Yeah. Normal.
the normal,
Mhm. Yes.
making it
Yes.
easier again for buyers to get approved. Um, is there anything else that you think that a VA buyer, veteran buyer, would need to know before, taking the step to get qualified and purchase a home?
My advice is anytime you're buying a house, if you think you're going to do it in the next year, I always think it's a good idea to talk to a mortgage lender. Often, you know, people don't know what's on their credit report, and often things are, popped in there that, you need to take care of, and sometimes they take a little bit of time. Now, that's with any kind of mortgage at all. I do think that, if there's for some reason they do need to research your certificate of eligibility, that's why I think it's a good idea to go ahead and get with a mortgage lender. If nothing else, get a copy of that and make sure that everything's okay with that. You do every once in a while come across where something needs to be corrected or fixed. Let's say you bought a house 10 years ago, VA, you sold it, and your eligibility needs to be reinstated. That's something that we could help you with, and you might think it's already been reinstated and corrected, but until you pull a copy of that, you don't know.
So that reinstatement is not necessarily an automatic thing that happens.
Right. It should be, but
Okay.
sometimes
Not
it doesn't.
always.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. One other question I had that popped up in my head. Okay, so if somebody qualifies for a VA loan and they're also a first-time buyer, home buyer, I know there's programs available, grant programs that will, for somebody that's buying a home can cover their down payment, some of their closing costs. Do buyers who are using VA loans, do they qualify for any of those grant programs, maybe to help with closing costs, even though they don't have to have a down payment? Do they have any
Yes.
similar programs available?
Yes, they could. Yeah,
Okay.
everybody. Yeah, they could very well qualify for some of those. One
Okay.
that was really, really popular for a while was like the Texas Vet, where they would take your interest rate and you'd get it knocked down 2 or 3 points depending on your situation. Well, as of late, number one, interest rates are so good, it's kind of silly to do that.
Mm.
And as of late, they started charging, a point, 2 points for you to even use it. Well, at that point, then you're just basically a wash, and so it's not worth it. So
Okay.
make sure you read the fine print and make sure you fully understand each program before you just sign up for it, because
So
nothing is
sometimes you're
free.
actually you're paying extra to get that lower interest rate.
Yes, and
Okay.
that's the case a lot of times with a lot of the grant programs. They have their own fees. Now those fees can be rolled into what they pay, but there is, normally some sort of cost.
Okay. That reminds me of another question that I get sometimes. So with VA buyer, obviously, no down payment. They would like to get into the home without closing costs. My job as their realtor is to try to get the seller to pay some, if not all, of their closing costs. Well, if that doesn't happen, I've gotten the question before: can I just roll my closing costs? Can I finance them into my loan? Can they do
Um,
that or not?
so what they do is essentially you're just going to beef up what they're paying. So if the house is for sale for 100,000 and they want to roll in and they want $5,000 paid by this rolled in, then you would just do it for 105 and show the 5,000 seller paid.
Okay. And
Now let me back
we're
up and
seeing a
say
lot of that.
also, yeah. And let me also back up and say that on a VA, the seller cannot pay more than 4%.
Okay, so 4% of the sale price of the home is
Right,
the maximum that they can contribute towards the buyer's closing costs.
right. Which in this
Okay.
area, generally, that's more than enough to cover, taxes and insurance and all closing costs. In this area, normally that doesn't run into an issue at all.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about what all is included in closing costs? I feel like
Mhm.
it's this mysterious thing that anybody
Yes.
that's buying a home, veteran or not, everybody's going to have closing costs. And I get the question all the time, like, well, what are closing costs? How much are they? What can I expect? How much do I have to have for closing, and what all is encompassed in the closing costs?
Right. So you're going to have appraisal fees, and that's just whatever the appraiser charges. You're
Okay.
going to have survey fees, which is exactly what they charge. You're going to have a title policy. Now, everything all those fees those invoices will be available to you. So you can see that you should only be being charged if the appraiser came back and said he's going to charge you $422. You cannot be charged $425. So all of those invoices will be available to you. So you have the survey,
Okay.
the appraisal, the credit report, the title policy. Then there's going to be lender's fees, which normally include underwriting, processing, and closing fees.
Okay.
And those are normally about $1,500 or so. And what else am I missing? So got the appraisal, survey, title policy, closing fees.
And
Then you're
then
going to attorney
prepaids.
fees. Yes. And then you're going to have escrows or taxes and insurance or prepaids, or they get called so many things. And so that's where you include your taxes and insurance in your monthly mortgage payment. And they keep, so when you close, you have to pay a year of insurance up front. So they'll collect 12 months of insurance, and then they'll collect 3 months cushion of taxes and 3 months cushion of insurance. Now those are going to be because they always want to have a little bit extra backup just in case for when if they pay them a little bit early or what have you. Now,
Okay.
keep in mind that when you include your taxes and insurance in your monthly mortgage payment, those do change yearly. You can shop your insurance yearly if you do want to. We also know that for the most part, taxes do normally go up a little bit here in this area. So
Right.
that's why your monthly payment would change. But your prepaids would be included in your closing cost. And as long as all of those things are up under 4%, then the seller can pay those for you.
Okay. And so the closing costs that you just mentioned, those are costs that every buyer has, whether it's a
Right.
VA or a conventional loan or FHA, they're all going to have those costs that are part of the overall closing cost. And
Right.
so when you get to closing where you're signing papers, you get a closing statement from the title company and it breaks down and it tells you how much your payment is, your principal and interest, how much of that monthly payment is your property taxes, how much is your insurance, and then it'll have a total. Says, okay, your monthly payment is $1,400 a month. So you're saying for the 30-year life of that loan, my payment's not going to stay the same.
Right. More than likely, it is not.
And it's going to change because of insurance costs and property tax changes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Another thing that I didn't mention is a funding fee with the VA. The VA
Okay.
funding fee is financed in with
Okay.
your mortgage, and your funding fee depends on your eligibility. And so
Okay.
that's the only way you're ever going to know that is if you get a copy of your certificate of eligibility.
Okay.
And
So that funding fee is going to be different for every veteran or active duty
yes.
person who's using a VA loan. Okay.
Yes. Now,
Okay.
if you are fully disabled, most of the time there is no funding fee.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. I know there's different disability rating levels. So somebody that's 100% disabled, you're saying they wouldn't have a funding fee. So somebody that's maybe 70% disabled, are they going to have a lower funding fee than somebody who's not disabled at all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And there's no way to know that exactly until you pull a copy of it. It just all depends on your eligibility.
Okay. And I want to touch on just for a second another benefit if you are a veteran when it comes to property taxes. So here in Texas, we have several property tax exemptions that are available where if you apply, it lowers your property taxes, which in turn lowers your monthly mortgage payment. So anybody that's buying a home and that's going to be their primary residence, they qualify for a homestead exemption. Well, on top of that, is it true that a veteran also has I believe it's a disabled veteran exemption that's available in Texas. So depending on their disability rating, they can get an additional amount knocked off their property taxes, correct?
Right. Now, keep in mind, you cannot get any discounts on your property taxes until it's your property. So you buy a house today, it's not your property yet. So you have to file for any exemptions once the property is owned by you.
Okay. So you're saying, I put the property under contract today, but it's not technically mine until closing day. I sign the papers, title's in my name at that point. So at that point, then I can apply for whatever exemptions I'm eligible for on the property taxes.
Right.
Okay.
So when you close, your taxes will be based on the seller. And so if the seller is a 40-year-old man that's not a veteran or nothing, and all he put on there was his homestead, then you're going to close with his tax amounts.
And those will be your taxes for the remainder of that year, right? The remainder of that calendar year.
Yes.
So at the beginning of the next year, then you can apply for whatever exemptions you may be eligible for.
Yes, that you're eligible for. And the biggest thing with doing those exemptions is you're going to want to make sure that your driver's license has the new property address on it once you go to file. You'll need that, and you'll need proof that you did purchase the house, and those are documents you'll get at closing as well.
Okay. And right now is prime time to apply for exemptions. I know that opens at the beginning of the year, and I believe they've got until the end of April to apply for those exemptions for this year.
Right.
So there is a window. You can't just do it anytime during the year. You have to do it before the end of April, and that's whether or not you're a veteran. If you bought a home in the last year and you have not applied for your homestead exemption, now's the time to complete that application and get it in so that you can get the homestead exemption in place for the coming year for you.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. I think we will wrap up here in just a minute. I don't see any other questions, so I'll just kind of ask you one more time if there's anything else that you want to mention regarding VA loans or just buying in general, anything that you would like the viewers to know that would help them during the process.
I would just honestly say that, VA loan guidelines, just like any other, can change at any time.
Okay.
And so I would just beg anybody that's ever purchasing any type of house to go to the experts. I understand that Grandpa probably bought a house 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, VA, but things are not the same.
Okay.
And everybody's going to have an opinion. It's just like anything else in life. Everybody has an opinion about it. And I would just say, find a lender, local lender that you trust, find a local realtor that you trust, and use those people.
Can't I just go on the internet and find all the accurate information I need there? Can I just Google it?
Well, not so much. It's kind of like if you Google a bloody nose before you know you have cancer, you're dying, So
right.
Everything on the internet is not accurate. And keep in mind that all VA guidelines are not the same across every state.
Okay. So somebody that maybe purchased a home using a VA loan in another state and has moved to Texas, it's not going to necessarily be the same as it was in their former state.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So
that is good to know.
If you bought a house in California, even last year, just double check. Talk to a local lender. That's why I'm a huge advocate on a local lender.
Yes,
number one,
I am as well.
They know the market. They know what happens here. So make sure you do your homework, and make sure you do your homework with somebody that's local. That understands the market, that knows the difference, because most mortgage lenders will tell you across the U.S. that, Texas is very different when it comes to mortgages. It is.
And very different when it comes to home buying in general.
Very much. Yes. Yeah. They say that they're protecting us on a lot of things, which, in some instances, makes our life easier. In some instances, it's not.
Not so much.
Yeah. So, just make sure you talk to somebody that's local and understands the local market.
Excellent advice. And I forgot to ask this earlier, but anybody that's viewing right now, if you guys would like additional information on VA loans specifically, or just general home buying information on other types of mortgages, qualifications, if you will put your email address in the comment box, and then we can make sure to send you information. Christina and I are not going to spam you, but just drop your email address if you want additional information. And then we have another comment. Make sure to go see your local veterans representative.
Yes.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you, Chris.
Yes.
Alrighty. Well, last chance, anybody that's viewing, if you have any questions, drop them in there. Or again, if you would just like some additional information from Christina and I on home buying, VA loans, or anything else related to real estate that she or I can help you with, just drop us your email address, and we'd be happy to reach out to you and connect and get you everything that you need. Christina and I both, we love what we do. I know that she does. I've been referring her out as a lender for pretty much the whole time that I've been in real estate. Her customer service is top notch. She's like me. It seems like she works 24/7. I know that she doesn't. I know she sleeps, and she's got kids, so she's not always working. But if I need to get with her during the weekend or on an evening with a question from a buyer, she's very responsive, always has been. So she is a great resource for any questions related to financing or purchasing a home. So. Yeah.
I am here if you have any questions. They come up.
Well, thank you, Christina. I'm glad that you joined us today. Thank you for the excellent information. And I'm sure I will see you soon.
All right. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye. And thanks again, everybody, for joining us today. Danielle, I see that you've left your email address. So Christina and I will be sure to reach out to you and get you additional information. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. We've just got a little bit left till 1 o'clock, but I don't see any other questions. So thank you guys for tuning in. Again, this is Trish Minshew. I'm a realtor with Coldwell Banker Apex. I will be continuing this series of Facebook Lives every other Monday. I believe the topic that we are doing in 2 weeks is buying new construction. So anybody that is interested in learning on how to buy a brand spanking new home, whether that's from a custom home builder, I can't talk, or one of the local builders that you see frequently around town, like D.R. Horton and Stylecraft, and those that you see with whole neighborhoods full of their homes. I've got some information that I want to share in a couple of weeks on how to buy new construction. So make sure to tune in, or let your friends know, friends and family know that might be interested in that. If there's any additional topics you guys would like to hear about in the coming weeks, feel free to you can comment here or send me a message. I'm pretty easy to find on Facebook, Instagram. Just search my name and I'll be able to come up. So send me a message if there's anything else I can help you guys with. Hopefully everybody is thawing out from the great snowpocalypse, and everybody has power and is getting back to normal this week. So y'all have a great Monday and a great rest of your week, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.